We have Mr. Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like you, my father was a World War II veteran. Dad was a Marine, and he told me the only thing generals ever gave him was a hard time. So I fully expect to get that from you all. You don't need to write that down, but that's just me personally. This is for either one of you.
Marine in World War II, and he said the same thing.
Do what?
That my father was a Marine in World War II with the 4th Marine Division.
That
said
was
the same
1st
thing.
Marine Division. His colonel was Chesty Puller. So thank you. This is for either one of y'all. The Taliban was in violation of the Doha Agreement. Why did we remove our troops?
I think that's a question for policymakers, not for either of us.
So you all, I guess what I want to get at is y'all weren't involved in the consultation of that.
We absolutely were involved in the consultation, and we pointed out repeatedly that the conditions were not being met.
That's what I wanted to know. Can you explain why the arbitrary deadline of August 31st was chosen as the date of removal from Afghanistan? And was the State Department or Department of Defense the ones that chose this date?
Didn't choose the date, but I can tell you some of the logic and thinking that was going behind that. So the date of May 1st is the Doha Agreement. Right. This current administration, the Biden administration, comes into office on the 20th of January. And then the first week in February, actually I think the first meeting is either the 3rd, 4th, or 5th or something like that, but the first week in February is the beginning of a 10-week deliberation that was quite rigorous actually, lots of meetings, lots of readers, et cetera, by the National Security Council to include the current president. And then the decision or the guidance to the State Department was to get additional time, work with the Taliban, postpone them 1 May, and I think the most that the State Department could get was, I think, whatever that is, 6 months, I think it is. And that then bounds your problem from time of decision, 14 April, not going to go with 1 May, and it takes you out X amount of days. I think it was whatever that is to the end of August, September. But that was the backstop, and that was because of negotiations between Zal Khalilzad and the Taliban as to how much he could push it to the right.
13 Americans, including my constituent, Staff Sergeant Ryan Knaus, and 170 Afghanis were killed at Abbey Gate. Do y'all consider this withdrawal a success?
Well, as I said in my opening statement, and I've previously said in several previous testimonies, I think the whole thing is a strategic failure. I've said that openly several different times. But at the same time, I want it really clear that the United States military did its job, and the United States military did what was asked of it, and that anyone who served in Afghanistan, or any family of the fallen, or any of the wounded, every single one of them did their job, did what bravery and courage could ask of. They did it with professionalism, they did it with dignity, they did it with courage, and they did it with compassion. So I believe the United States military executed its mission, and I think that they did so with great professionalism.
And my dad had another saying, I'm sure he stole it from somebody, but old men make decisions and young men die. And that, as a parent, that's what happened here, and those old men being at the State Department. Would it have been better to choose a measure of operational success rather than a date when deciding your all's date of withdrawal?
I think one of the lessons, if you want to call it a lesson, I suppose, is don't put date certains on things like this, and don't announce them, and don't put date certains. That's basically, you lose whatever leverage you might have had if you're involved in some sort of negotiation.
It seems to me that we've never learned that lesson. We always announce these dates, and then whether it be Vietnam or some other debacle, and it just seems to always end the same way. General McKenzie, you're not getting enough airtime, so I want to ask you a question, if that's all right, brother. What was CENTCOM's official assessment of the ties between the Taliban and other terrorist organizations, and do you agree in hindsight with those assessments?
So I think we had a pretty consistent assessment that the Taliban was opposed to ISIS. They had theological disputes, and the Taliban, given an opportunity, would push ISIS out of Afghanistan. And they tried to do that on a couple of occasions, but had limited success. On the other hand, their ties with al-Qaeda were deep and profound, and there was no way, in my judgment, that they were ever going to separate from al-Qaeda. And so those are the two major organizations that you see operating in the region. So ISIS, yeah, given a choice, they'd just as soon be rid of them. Al Qaeda, they're not gonna take that action. Now today, ISIS-K probably is the more potent of the two threats, but it's difficult to project into the future.
All right. I've run out of time, but I'm just like to say to the families, I hope you all find some peace in your life, and I hope the Lord blesses you all. And thank you for the sacrifice. Mama lost her brother in the Second World War, and to the day she died, and they played that national anthem, she teared up. And I hope you all have some real peace in your life. So thank y'all. Mr. Chairman, apologize for going over.
Gentleman yields.